Welcome to Baytown Beginnings. This area is rich in history and grew quickly because of its proximity to water and the abundant natural resources which are still Baytown's mainstay. Many of our hardworking ancestors, famous and not so famous, have helped build our community to what it is today. Some you may have known well, some we didn't know at all, but their names are familiar to us because of the streets and landmarks which bear those names. Many of the pictures you will see are at Sterling Municipal Library and were a joint collaboration with the Baytown Historical Museum and several citizens back in the 70s to compile a collection that is available to the public. Several others are from publications in the library, such as The History of Baytown by Margaret Swett Hinson, Baytown Vignettes by John Britt of Lee College and some of his students, and a pictorial history of Baytown, Texas, edited by the Baytown Sun. The waterways between San Jacinto River and Trinity River contributed to an interesting history before the discovery of oil in the upper Galveston Bay area, which includes Goose Creek and Cedar Bayou. Signs of nomadic hunters and gatherers along these waterways date back 4,000 years. Archaeological finds have revealed the remains of several Indian tribes, including the Attakapas, or Cocozacs, and Karankawas. The earliest recorded history dates back to 1528, when Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, a Spaniard from Cuba, washed ashore on Galveston Island and was taken captive for 7 years by the Karankawas. After escaping, the Spaniards were allowed to continue trading. The French were also present in the area. A local historian, the late John Clay, searched for years and finally found the remains of a 1700 Spanish mission reported to be located on the east bank of the Lower Trinity in the area now known as Wallaceville. His detailed account of this mission is available in his book, Spain, Mexico, and the Lower Trinity, in the reference collection at the library. The ease of waterway travel in the area contributed greatly to its growth and popularity. Landings at Morgan's Point, Midway, Scott's Wharf, Lynchburg, Bush Landing, and Black Duck allowed people, animals, and freight to come and go conveniently. This is a picture of the Bush Landing as it looked in the late 1800s. It was located near the Main Street Bridge over Goose Creek. One of the earliest pioneers was Nathaniel Lynch, who arrived with his wife and 3 children in 1822. He operated a ferryboat service across the San Jacinto River, now known as Lynchburg. This picture is of a family boarding the ferry. His house was an inn for travelers, and Lynch early on served as mayor, justice of the peace, and postmaster for the community known as San Jacinto neighborhood. Another prominent landowner was William Scott, who owned and operated a boat landing known as Midway on Black Duck Bay, a cotton gin, and a grist mill. Scott was sometimes a part-time trader and lawyer. His home, known as Pleasant Point, was also open to travelers. It was at his home that groups gathered for meetings and also to evacuate from Mexican troops at the Battle of San Jacinto. Dr. Harvey Whiting, another Baytown pioneer, was one of the original land grantees. He arrived in 1833. He was a doctor, rancher, farmer, and also made shoes and boots. His home was located at the mouth of Goose Creek on a rise between Lee High School's Memorial Stadium and Sterling Municipal Library. Other notables were David G. Burnett, interim president of the Republic of Texas, and Ashbel Smith. They both resided on the banks of San Jacinto River. Sam Houston also had a summer retreat on Cedar Bayou at Cedar Point, where he and his wife often sought shelter from political controversy. Dr. Ashbel Smith was probably the most famous and most productive resident of the early Baytown area. He was a physician, educator, diplomat, civic leader, farmer, rancher, and soldier. Moving to the area known as Evergreen, overlooking Tabbs Bay in 1840, his home was known more for its extensive library than for style and comfort. The home burned a few years after Smith's death in 1886. Before his death, Dr. Ashbel Smith became the largest landowner, owning more than 1,000 acres. He was also the largest slave owner with 32 slaves. Much of his land became the Goose Creek oil field. The first church established in 1844 was Cedar Bayou Methodist. After 2 years of meeting in homes, John R. Ray bought 10 acres for $40 and built a log church building. The top left picture is of the third building to be built for Cedar Bayou Methodist. The Baptists established a church around 1854 and later used the Cedar Bayou Masonic Lodge for services. This building is pictured top right. The first floor of the Masonic Lodge was used for the first permanent school. By 1850, 40 families lived in the area. When the Civil War broke out, this area also played a part, although a small one. The area was not greatly affected by the war. Shipyards along Goose Creek were the site for the construction of blockade runners. One notable yard was built and operated by Commodore Thomas S. Chubb. His schooner, the Royal Yacht, was a guard vessel to a Confederate troopship. He was taken captive by Union forces in Indianola and his schooner burned. When released, he was sent to Texas, where he was made chief of the harbor police. He rebuilt the Royal Yacht at his yard and was later instrumental in capturing 4 Federal vessels and netting valuable armament and supplies for the Confederates, helping to restore Southern pride. Former slaves had a hard time after the Civil War. The 1870 slave schedule listed 134 blacks. By 1870, only 52 blacks lived in the area. Most were domestic servants or farm laborers. White families began to hire poor white women as domestics after many blacks left. After 1850, the area's economy was boosted by possibly as many as 11 brickyards along Cedar Bayou. By 1875, boat building and servicing continued after the Civil War, along with rice cultivation and cattle ranching. This picture is of the Casey Brickyard and the smoke that billowed out from the kilns. With an investment of $800, 2 hand machines to mold the brick, 10 employees, and 2 horses to power the clay mixing machine, this yard produced over 600,000 bricks in a 10-month period in 1869. Galveston used the majority of bricks made along Cedar Bayou, transported there by a Houston to Galveston railroad line, newly completed in 1860. A number of storms slowed commerce during the mid to late 1800s due to storm damage. 1867 was long remembered for the yellow fever epidemic that began in July. Then a severe storm followed in October. Galveston and Houston quarantined boats and trains, which affected commerce along Cedar Bayou. The railway connecting Galveston and Houston was damaged, further affecting commerce. A hurricane in September of 1875 destroyed Lynchburg, a main entry, which caused hardships on the Baytown area. A number of people drowned. The area was damaged again during the 1900 storm. Ice and a few severe cold winters also caused setbacks to the economy, but the community persevered through it all because of its close ties to churches, schools, and the Masonic Lodge.